January 21, 1984, and Bon Jovi's self-titled album hits the shelves. Produced by Lance Quinn and Tony Bon Jovi, John's brother, the album serves as a powerful showcase for a hungry young five-piece band eager to make their mark on the rock scene. The album isn't an overnight success the band might have hoped, but it makes its way to number 43 on the Billboard 200 chart, with one single managing to crack the top 40. The single, Runaway, becomes a modest hit, reaching number 39 on the charts. But this initial taste of success lays the foundations for what's to come. And while Bon Jovi marked their arrival with a whimper, Motley Crue are unlikely to notice, and are more concerned with the indulgences of the road. Having secured the support slot for Ozzy Osbourne's '84 Bark at the Moon tour, the band perform in a string of 10,000-seat arenas. And while the band deliver the goods on stage, it's what happens offstage in 1984 that's remembered most today. Ozzy, a 14-year veteran of touring, takes a liking to the young band, and spends his nights on Motley Crue's tour bus instead of his own, immersing himself in their world of debauchery and excess. Amidst the chaos, Motley Crue receive recognition for their accomplishments. During their first ever show at Madison Square Garden, supporting Ozzy, they're presented with platinum albums for Shout at the Devil, solidifying their status as rising rock stars. Meanwhile, Tommy Lee decides to tie the knot with his girlfriend, Candace. However, their marriage only lasted 3 months. Prior to their wedding, Candace discovered a photo of Tommy engaging in intimate acts with 2 other women. The situation escalates during their first week as a married couple when one of the women keeps calling their home.
Hey man, I ain't gonna get no more fights tonight.
Convinced of Tommy's infidelity, she confronts him in the kitchen, armed with a butter knife. In a fit of anger, she attempts to stab him, but the blade fails to penetrate. The breaking point comes after attending a World Wrestling Federation event, followed by a night at the mud wrestling establishment, the Tropicana. During the limo ride, Candace continues to taunt Tommy, using derogatory language towards his mother, who mistakenly called Candace by his ex-girlfriend's name. Unable to tolerate her relentless provocations, Tommy loses control and punches Candace in the mouth, dislodging a temporary tooth cap. This marks the first time Tommy would hit a woman. Despite this, the tour with Ozzy Osbourne continues to be a whirlwind of debauchery and mayhem. Motley Crue and Ozzy indulge in outrageous antics, pushing the boundaries of rock and roll excess. In Memphis, the trio of Ozzy, Tommy, and Vince nearly face arrest after drunkenly urinating on a police car in the middle of a freeway. Their hotels become a playground for their wild behavior, with Ozzy defecating in Tommy's bathroom and smearing feces all over the walls of his room. Despite, or perhaps because of the chaos, Motley Crue manages to attract attention from religious protesters who accuse them of devil worship. In New Orleans, during Mardi Gras, Vince and Ozzy explore local strip clubs while Tommy, Nicky, and Ozzy guitarist J.K. Lee find themselves embroiled in a knife fight at a bar called Dungeon on Bourbon Street. After messing around with the girlfriend of the bar's bouncer, Nicky says they got thrown out and cut, as guys with spiked clubs were trying to smash them in the head. Backed by the relative safety of the hotel pool, Ozzy Osbourne surprises fellow suntanners by offering them a dollar bill he had placed between his butt cheeks. Shortly thereafter, Ozzy's escapades reach their peak as he snorts a line of ants poolside, a feat that is matched only by Nicky Sixx. Ozzy then proceeds to shock hotel guests by openly urinating by the pool, and then, as he did with the ants, getting on all fours to snort his own piss with a cocktail straw. Nicky Six responds
I can match that.
and also urinates poolside. But before he can get down on his own knees, Ozzy pushes him out of the way to snort Nicky's piss, much to the dismay of onlookers. Ozzy's declared the winner of these poolside rock and roll shenanigans. In November of 1984, Motley Crue played their last show of the Shout at the Devil tour, their first headlining gig in the UK at London's Dominion Theatre. But it's not a fun gig. The tough English crowd toss strange butcher meats at the band, while Tommy pulls a dart from his drum tech's back. As the show concludes, a malfunctioning dry ice machine leaves Clyde, the drum tech, with severe burns. As the band walks off stage, Tommy moons the booing crowd
Suck it.
in a final act of defiance. Back in LA, Vince decides to throw a party at his apartment in Redondo Beach. Little does he know that the events that would unfold over the next few days would leave an indelible mark on his soul. The party rages on a potent fuel of Quaaludes, cocaine, and Jack Daniels, and members of Finnish hard rock act Hanoi Rocks join in on the fun. As the party continues, Vince realizes that they need to replenish their dwindling supplies. He turns to his neighbor Jim, an avid car enthusiast, and offers him the chance to drive Vince's new red 72 Ford de Tomaso Pantera to the local liquor store. However, Jim politely declines, as he and his fiancée have plans to dine at a French restaurant that night. But Hanoi Rocks drummer Razzle volunteers to accompany Vince on the errand. With Razzle by his side, they hop into the car, hit the liquor store, and pick up a couple of $100 worth of alcohol, which Razzle holds in his lap on the way back to Vince's. As the clock ticks towards 6:38 p.m., just a few blocks away from Vince's home, disaster strikes. Vince's car hits a wet patch on the road, causing it to skid sideways for 35 feet. The vehicle careens into oncoming traffic on the beachfront esplanade, colliding with a white 67 VW driven by 18-year-old Lisa Hogan. Tragically, Razzle bears the brunt of the impact on his side of the car. Chaos ensues, and emergency services are rushed to the scene. Vince, now concussed with cracked ribs and minor facial cuts, sits on the curb, his walls falling down around him. Tommy hears wailing sirens and grows concerned. He quickly arrives on foot. His heart sinks as he sees Vince's distraught state and catches sight of Razzle's blue Converse sneaker lying in the middle of the road. The gravity of the situation becomes apparent. The aftermath of the incident brings a wave of devastation. Razzle's taken to Redondo's South Bay Hospital, where the doctors deliver the heartbreaking news that he has succumbed to severe head injuries. Lisa Hogan, the driver of the other vehicle, is rushed to a different hospital in critical condition, her broken body teetering on the edge of life and death. Daniel Smithers, Lisa's passenger and boyfriend, also suffers injuries, including a broken leg and brain damage. Vince, still stained with Razzle's blood on his Hawaiian shirt and shorts, faces intense scrutiny from the authorities. Questioned about the accident, he's released as the sun rises, greeted by the waiting presence of Beth and Tommy. Vince has been arrested for vehicular manslaughter. The band's managers Doc McGee and Doug Thaler are confronted with a wave of inquiries, but choose to remain silent. The spectre of potential lawsuits looms, forcing Elektra Records to cancel a significant promotional campaign and recall the band's Helter Skelter picture disc. As the days unfold, the consequences of that fateful night become more apparent. Vince posted bail for just $2,650, finding temporary freedom from his charges, while Nicky, returning from a vacation, receives the heartbreaking news of the accident. The world of these musicians is forever changed, and the echoes of that tragic event would resonate for years to come. While Motley Crue's immediate future looks uncertain, Bon Jovi raced back into the studio to record their sophomore album. At Warehouse Studios in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, over a period of just 6 weeks, Bon Jovi recorded their second album, 7800 Degrees Fahrenheit, the last project with producer Lance Quinn. The early sessions were plagued with trouble. The band was unimpressed with Quinn, whose track record lacked hit albums. Nevertheless, Only Lonely and In and Out of Love managed to crack the top 40 of the mainstream rock chart. Jovi played some small headlining tours in Japan and Europe, and played second fiddle to Rat on the band's Invasion of Your Privacy tour back in America. Meanwhile, in the Crüe camp, rumors circulate that Hanoi Rocks vocalist Michael Monroe might replace Vince if he faces a lengthy jail sentence for his charges. The tragedy weighs heavily on both bands, leading to jam sessions and collaborations on several songs. Hanoi Rocks members Mike Monroe and Andy McCoy resort to drug use as a coping mechanism, spending days at Nikki Sixx and Rat's Robin Crosby's house indulging in cocaine and heroin. On September 1, 1985, Vince Neil appears in court, wearing a conservative grey suit accompanied by his lawyer. He listens to the charges of vehicular manslaughter and drunk driving related to a car accident, where his friend was killed and 2 others were injured. Vince stands silently during the arraignment, and his lawyer enters a plea of not guilty on his behalf. The judge grants Vince bail pending a preliminary hearing. The trial gets repeatedly postponed throughout the year. Vince's previous conviction for a drink driving charge adds to the severity of the current case, potentially resulting in up to 7 years of imprisonment. The media portray him as a murderer, and as the trial looms, Doc McGee informs Vince that the court requires him to check into rehab. He spends 30 intense days in the Palmer Drug Abuse Program for rehabilitation, successfully completing the program but feeling as though his career is over. Vince's bandmates and management keep their distance during his rehab, and he doesn't hear a thing from them. On February 17, 1985, Motley Crue begin recording the next album, tentatively titled Entertainment or Death, with producer Tom Werman at Cherokee Studios. The album's title and theme are inspired by Nicky's readings on Commedia dell'arte and Antonin Artaud's essay, Theatre of Cruelty. Nicky becomes fascinated with the idea that court jesters wearing motley-colored clothing were beheaded if they failed to entertain the king. The band designs new theatrical stage outfits, incorporating colorful and glittery fabrics, much more glam than gutter punk, and a big departure from their iconic black leather and blood-drenched Shout at the Devil look. Motley Crue entered the studio with only 5 songs written by Nicky, and the recording process is plagued by various antics and disruptions. At 4:10 p.m. on the 6th of May, Nicky and Vince make their way to the studio, but their path is abruptly disrupted. A silver 1980 Cadillac Eldorado carelessly runs a stop sign, colliding with Nicky's brand new Jeep. Without hesitation, the pair ditch the Jeep in the middle of the road and embark on a determined chase after the reckless driver. Nicky signals a passing taxi, urging the driver to pursue the Cadillac. Spotting their target about 8 cars ahead, Vince seizes the opportunity, jumping out of the taxi, taking chase, and leaping onto the car's roof and shattering the windshield with a powerful kick.
Fucking asshole.
The perpetrator is subdued as Vince detains him, while Nicky seeks assistance from a nearby gas station to summon the police. Upon their arrival, law enforcement commends the Motley Crue members for apprehending a wanted man involved in multiple hit-and-run incidents. For once, the band finds themselves, curiously, on the right side of the law. Shortly thereafter, Tommy has a motorcycle accident of his own on a Los Angeles freeway, flipping his bike 7 times with friend Joey Vera from Armored Saint. Tommy escapes with minor injuries, but Joey's hand is damaged, and it's months before he can play again. While personal struggles persist, the band does release its 3rd album, Theatre of Pain, which debuts at number 90 on the charts. The album is mostly trashed by critics and fans alike, with the band's offstage trials and tribulations and the preoccupation with partying and drugs taking its toll on the songwriting process. The album's saving grace is the band's first power ballad, Home Sweet Home, which features a piano intro played by Tommy Lee, and like their glam aesthetic, is also a departure from the punk edge of their previous work. The song goes on heavy rotation on MTV and helps the band shift a few more records, but Home Sweet Home only ever peaks at number 89 on the US singles chart when it's first released. It doesn't hit the top 40 until 6 years later, when it's re-released as part of the band's 91 Decade of Decadence compilation album. Despite the album's mediocre showing, like Shout at the Devil, and on the back of the band's future success, it's gone on to be certified 4 times platinum. On September 1, 1985, after the album's release, Vince appears in court once again. As part of a plea bargain, he pleads guilty to vehicular manslaughter and receives a sentence of 30 days in county jail, to be served after the Theatre of Pain World Tour. He also faces 5 years of probation and 200 hours of community service. Restitution amounts totaling $2.7 million are ordered to be paid to victims and their families. The lenient penalty prompts public criticism. Meanwhile, Tommy develops a romantic relationship with actress Heather Locklear. On December 24, Tommy officially proposes to Heather, and she accepts. The couple celebrates their engagement while riding in a limousine with the wind in their hair on the Ventura Freeway. The trials and tribulations of their personal lives continue to intertwine with their music careers, setting the stage for what lies ahead. Bon Jovi, meanwhile, returned to America from Europe to support Rat on their Invasion of Your Privacy tour from July to December, with a quick stop at the Donington Monsters of Rock Festival in August. They appear on the bill under Marillion and headliners ZZ Top, but above Metallica, who were a year into the release of Ride the Lightning and yet to reach superstar status themselves. The band's Fahrenheit album barely cracked the US top 40, peaking at number 37. But the relentless touring pays off, with the album staying on the US top 200 for an impressive 85 weeks. Still, it's not enough for their record label. The band couldn't afford another lukewarm showing. They risked going the way of numerous other promising also-rans from the 80s hard rock scene, such as Black and Blue, Crimson Glory, Heaven, The Moles, Lion, and of course, Sixers London. Bon Jovi's 3rd time needed to be a charm for the band. It was make or break.